But let me show you what our ancestors had to use. In the 1500s, we were very good with a bow and arrow. Our English archers were mastered. We could get 3 arrows in the air before the first one landed. Amazing. We picked a fight with the Spaniards, and we found they were actually shooting at us with gunpowder, with a gun that looked exactly like this. Now, they weren't very good at mathematics, these garlic-smelling Spaniards. It took 13 minutes to load a gun like this. The very early primitive guns took a long time to load. Because the powder was so filthy, they had to scrub it all out really carefully before they could put the next bit of powder in, then the bullet, and then put some more powder in the pan to ignite it with a glowing cord. That's how they brought the gunpowder into this country, with a gun that looks just like that. So if you're going to take up fishing, you need to have the gun, you need to have the powder, and that's what we're going to show you next. This one lives over there, because what we're going to do is to show you how gunpowder was made. Now, this has never been seen before. It would have been seen this morning, but the bugger didn't work, so we're going to try again. If you were here with me this morning, you'll know just what I meant. I forgot to bring the fuse. Over here, let me explain. See, it was the ancient Chinese that discovered the components of gunpowder. Now, remember Jesus? He was born 2,000 years ago. The ancient Chinese, the boffins now reckon, knew about shooting powder about 3,000 years ago. Incredible history. They changed the world, and we all take it for granted. Now, what we're going to do is show you how this powder was made all those years ago, and we'll show you literally right now. Inside here, I've got an empty tin, and with the residue of this morning's powder that didn't burn properly, and we're going to mix it up and do it straight away. Now, this can only go one of 2 ways. Let me explain. You youngsters, you know what you do on a Saturday afternoon. A large number of teenage kids, the best they can think of a Saturday afternoon is to spend all day in their bedrooms with their boyfriends watching the idiot box Xbox nonsense. Well, that's a ridiculous 2-dimensional world. What I say to you is get outdoors and start experimenting. When we were youngsters, we had the most brilliant chemistry teacher. He was, I remember his name very well, Mr. Rosser he was called, and when he used to go outside to have a fag, as they used to do in those days, we used to go into his chemistry lab, into the cupboard, and we borrowed some of this stuff. This is potassium nitrate. The stuff in this container is otherwise known as saltpeter. This is the major component of gunpowder. Now, this was readily used by the people in the days before people had fridges or freezers. You couldn't preserve meat, but this was used to salt down the meat, and it was used in huge quantities. That is the major ingredient. The next ingredient is sulfur. Come on, you kids, this is what I'm talking about. Well, if this works, you won't forget it. Sulfur, readily found coming out the side of volcanoes. Don't see many volcanoes in Englandshire, but however, sulfur. The last ingredient is charcoal. The best charcoal was used by the powder-making factories, was made from the alder tree. Now, alder, as most country people would know, grows in very wet, boggy places. That made the best charcoal. And these powder factories, vast, huge factories, were all made out of wood in case they had a massive explosion, and they used to put them in out-of-the-way places like Bodmin Moor and Dartmoor, places where I used to lark about when I was a kid. There's no archaeological evidence of that left anymore, and they did have some massive explosions. What we're going to do is to show you exactly how this is made. Are you watching, Jake? Your turn will come in just a moment. Okay, chemistry lesson you won't forget. The proportions of this is 75% of saltpeter. Now that 75% is roughly 7 to 1. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those in there. So that's your saltpeter. Now you see, this is how fire works, kids. To make fire, you need the 3 basic elements. You need the heat, you need the fuel, and you need oxygen. Now, saltpeter, when it burns and provides its own oxygen. Now, the sulfur, that is the fuel. This is the stuff that generates the heat. And, well, actually, it's the fuel. The charcoal develops the heat, and there you got it. The Chinese knew about this nearly 3,000 years ago. So the sulfur, then, 15% of sulfur. 15%, well 15% on those same proportions is 1 and a little bit. There you go, that will do for that. Sulfur in. As I say, this is something you don't see every day. If it works, I'll be very, very happy. If it doesn't, I'm going to look a complete Charlie again. However, here we go, and the charcoal, just 10% of this. Charcoal. Here we go. Right, now this powder has got to be mixed up really fine dust. And it's this dust which is then, in the proper powder factories that we still get today, is incorporated into a very hard cake by a massive heavy machine with big rollers. And this powder is then broken up into different sized grains, because that's what regulates the speed of burning. So then what we're doing here is we're mixing up this powder and we're getting it down as far as a fine dust as we possibly can. And this is in its crudest form. If you're expecting a massive explosion, you don't understand physics. Because the massive explosion comes from the gun, because there's nowhere else for the powder to go. Those rapidly expanding gases can only go down the barrel. And so it pushes the wad, which drives the shot down the barrel. Here, in that open air tin, we're not going to see a bang, but we should get, well, if with any luck, we should get at least a flame or something. Right, here we go.
Right, fingers in the ears.
Put that there.
Is it going to work, Chris?
I think we might be, well, we've got the advantage because it's not raining today. Here I've got, kids, dead simple to make a reliable fuse. This one goes in there. We say, chuck it in the water, catch some fish. Alrighty, okay, here we go. So I want to make sure that's completely in there. Powder goes in, we'll light the fuse and get the hell out of here. Now this has got this morning's failure as well, so there's a lot of powder in here. And this is either going to be really, really impressive, or I'll never be asked back to the show again. Okay, Jake, stay there. He says, I have to, Dad, because I'm tied to the ground with a great big piece of rope. Right, so we're going to light the fuse, kids, and this will show you what you're missing. Now, as I look around the ring, I see lots of people leaning forward with a big smile on their face. One or two people with a real sour grimace. Let me explain. I was born in 1961. There was no money, there was nothing to do. You made your own fun. You've heard it all before. If you give a kid a box of matches, sure enough, he's going to burn his fingers. But guess what? It teaches him to be more careful and more resourceful. If you give a kid a sharp knife, he's bound to cut himself, but he'll learn faster. So all these people, parents that teach their kids, don't go near the water, you'll drown, and all this stuff, it's complete idiocy. What are those kids going to be like when they're parents? I say, get yourself in the world of fire. It goes like this. Here she goes. Jake, stay there.
Welcome to Chris's demonstration of pyromania.
Please work. Oh, it worked!
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. What a Chris!
Happy days, look at that. There you go, do you see that, Jake?